Hey everyone, welcome back to PSA. If you're new here, I'm Tanya, and if you've been rocking with us for a while, thank you for being part of our journey. So last week, my husband Felix shared some of our secret sauce to 10 years of marriage. And while I could sit here and tell you how much of it is true, especially that part about the impromptu exit from a moving vehicle, today I want to share with you my perspective. He closed last week talking about mutual submission. And as much as that phrase might make people a little uncomfortable, the Bible gives us a clear picture of what that looks like. Not just for husbands, but for wives too. So let's talk about it. Now, I know that wives submitting to your husbands is not exactly a verse that gets applause in 2025, but I want us to actually look at what it says in Ephesians 5. I'm looking at verse 22 to 24, and it says, "Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything." Now, a lot of people read this and just stop there. But if we keep on reading, we'll find that Paul doesn't just talk about wives. He talks about husbands calling them to love their wives as Christ loved the church. And how did Christ love the church? He laid down his life. So submission here is not about being controlled or silence. It's about trust. It's about alignment. It's about choosing unity over ego. It's about the kind of love that makes you feel safe to submit because you know that your husband is submitted to Christ. So submission in our marriage doesn't mean that I don't have a voice. I have a voice. Anyone who knows me knows that I have plenty of voice. What it means is that I choose to trust my husband as the leader of our home because I trust the God who called him to that position. So what does this look like in our life? It means that I let him lead even when I have my own ideas, and I always have my own ideas. So I let him lead not because I can't lead, but because God has called him to cover me, to cover us. It also means that I respect him in public and in private, even when we disagree. This is very important. My words can either build him up or tear him down. So I choose to be his greatest encourager. It also means that I pray for him daily, every single day, because leadership is heavy and he needs God and his wisdom just as much as I do. It means that I trust his decisions even when I don't fully understand them. And that's okay because I know that he seeks God before he makes them. Submission is not a loss of power. It is the willingness to walk in divine order. And when a husband is truly loving his wife as Christ loves the church, submission, it becomes a joy, not a burden. It is not one-sided. I love that Felix last week talked about mutual submission because when the Bible calls wives to submit, it also calls the husbands to lay their lives down, right? So in Ephesians 5, we're going to read verse 25 to 28. And it says, "Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies." Come on now. "He who loves his wife loves himself." This is beautiful. This means that biblical marriage is not about one person having all the power. I cannot say this enough. It is about both people surrendering to Christ and serving one another. So if I submit and he leads in love and we both surrender to God first, then what do you think that produces? It produces peace and partnership and unity in our marriage. And that right there is the secret to our marriage. Not perfection, not some magic formula, just two people daily choosing to die to themselves so that they can love each other the way that God intended. When I think about marriage, I think about giving, and not just giving to each other, but how we give to the house of God. When it comes to tithing, God doesn't ask for equal amounts from everyone. He asks for equal sacrifice. The widow who gave those 2 small coins, she gave just as much as the wealthy man who gave from his abundance, because she gave all that she had. And you can see this passage in Mark 12. Marriage works in the very same way. We are not both always equally serving each other in the same way, but we are always giving all that we have in the season that we're in. There are times when one of us has more to offer than the other. There are times when one is strong and the other is weak. There are seasons when one is leading and the other is resting. But in every season, the measure of sacrifice is the same. We both give all that we have, even if what we have looks different. And this is why we never keep score, because that is a dangerous thing. Because marriage is not about who's doing more. It's about who is giving their all in every moment that we are in. But beyond submission and beyond sacrifice, I want to share 2 things that I truly believe strengthen our marriage. One of those things is that I believe that we both earnestly seek Christ and pursue our individual walk with God. So before I am a wife, before he is a husband, before we are both children of God, our marriage works because we don't rely on each other to be our source of joy or peace or identity. We both seek God first. We both read his word, spend time in prayer, and walk in obedience to his voice before we ever try to lead each other. There's a verse in Matthew 6, verse 33, and it says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." When 2 people are both chasing after God, they naturally grow closer to each other. The second thing that we do is we give each other the benefit of the doubt. This is so incredibly important. Instead of assuming the worst, we assume the best. Instead of judging each other's actions, we judge the intentions behind them. When something happens, and it will naturally, my first thought isn't, why would he do that? But my thought is, that's not his heart. I know there has to be an explanation. In Ephesians 4, verse 2-3, it says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort, not some effort, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." Marriage, it's not about perfection. It's about grace. When you look for the best in your spouse, you're going to find it. But if you look for their flaws, you'll find those too. But my question to you is, which version of your spouse are you speaking to? The one shaped by grace or the one that is shaped by criticism? Felix ended last week saying that the real secret to our marriage isn't just mutual submission, it's surrender to God. And that is exactly it. A godly marriage isn't built on feelings, because feelings change. It's built on a choice to serve each other, to put our pride aside, to walk in unity and trust God's design more than our own. And let me tell you the truth. If Jesus could submit to the Father, even to the point of the cross, then I can submit to the husband that God gave me, knowing that my real submission is ultimately to Christ. So let's continue the conversation in the comments. How do you view submission in marriage? Has it been misunderstood? I'd love to know your thoughts. And if this message encouraged you, do not forget to like and subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. And until next time, let's love more, and I'll see you at the next PSA. Submission, submitting to your husband, submitting to your wives, it's a spicy one, but let me tell you, the longer you walk with God, the more you walk in obedience with him, the lighter your life will get. If you enjoyed this message, definitely share it with the first person that comes to mind. We have an entire playlist of videos just like this, about 141 of them, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.